In this video, I'm going to talk about the laws that seek to remedy the gender pay gap. These laws are called the equal pay laws. And by the end of this video, you'll understand how equal pay laws work, how much an equal pay claim is worth, and what to do if you think you were the victim of unequal pay. So stick around. Okay, before I begin, nothing in this video is legal advice. Obviously, this is a YouTube video, and I don't know the specifics about your situation. But if you think you are a victim of unequal pay or any other kind of discrimination, feel free to reach out to my firm. The link to my website is in the description below. The gender pay gap is the difference in pay, on average, between men and women in the workforce. And it's called the gender pay gap because there's a gap in pay between men and women. On average, men are paid more than women. And I'm going to back this up with data. According to the 2020 US Census, men, on average, made about 18% more income than women. I'll put the official census data up on the screen now, and you can find this chart from the Census Bureau's website at census.gov. I put a red box around the median income for men and women working in the US in 2019. The median income for men in 2019 was $57,456, and the median income for women working in the US in 2019 was only $47,299. The female to male earning ratio for those figures comes out to 0.823. In other words, on average in the US in 2019, women made approximately 82% of what men made in that same year. So, objectively speaking, there is a gap in pay between what women earn and what men earn in the workforce. Luckily, we have laws that seek to remedy the pay gap. So, legislators have known about the gender pay gap for a long time. And to remedy the problem, in 1963, Congress enacted the Equal Pay Act. The Equal Pay Act of 1963 required equal pay for equal work among genders. Furthermore, most states also enacted their own laws to supplement the Equal Pay Act. And you might be wondering, what about discrimination laws? Don't anti-discrimination laws already protect equal pay? Well, to that I would say it's not that easy. You see, if an employer pays a woman less than a man, while that is gender discrimination, it doesn't fit nicely into the legal framework of discrimination. For more information about discrimination, see my video on discrimination. I go through exactly what discrimination is and how to bring a claim of discrimination. See my video up here. A claim of discrimination requires one of two things: either an intentional discriminatory act or a neutral policy that falls more harshly on a protected class. An intentional discriminatory act would be something like firing a woman because of her gender, or failing to hire a woman because of her gender, or demoting a woman because of her gender. And a neutral policy that falls more harshly on a protected class would be something like an arbitrary height or strength requirement, which is more easily attainable for men. But let's take another scenario. What if a male management team decides to pay male workers more than female workers, based on nothing more than their implicit bias to favor their own gender? Well, if they're not aware of what they're doing, it's not an intentional discriminatory act. And if it's not based on any neutral policy, then it's not a policy that falls more harshly on a protected characteristic. So you see, unequal pay can sometimes arise out of circumstances that wouldn't fit nicely into the legal framework of discrimination. And that's where equal pay laws come into play. So to understand equal pay laws, we should first look at the law. And the equal pay laws in each state in the US are all based on the same language from that Equal Pay Act of 1963. So the information I'm about to give is applicable to anyone in the US. But since I'm licensed in Washington, I'm going to go over Washington's Equal Pay Act specifically. And Washington's Equal Pay Act can be found in RCW 49.58. Specifically, we will be looking at RCW 49.58.020 subsection 1, and I'll put that up here. This section of the law states as follows: any employer in this state who discriminates in any way in providing compensation based on gender between similarly employed employees of the employer is guilty of a misdemeanor and subject to civil penalties. So the law is really simple, and it works like this. If an employer pays a female employee less than a male employee who is similarly employed, the employer violated the law. And similarly employed means that the job required similar skill, similar effort, similar responsibilities, and the jobs are performed under similar working conditions. The job title itself is less important than the job responsibilities, or else the employer could just make up job titles to get around the law. Now, there are some exceptions to this law, and I'll go over those now. The main exception to equal pay laws is called bona fide job-related factors. If the difference in pay is based on a bona fide job-related factor, then it's not a violation. Bona fide job-related factors include the following. First, education, training, and experience. For instance, if a male worker has some advanced degree and is paid more because of that, that is not a violation. Second, seniority systems. If the male worker is getting paid more because he worked there for a lot longer than the female worker, then that is not a violation either. Next is merit systems. If there is some objective performance measurement that shows the male performed way better than the female, and that's the reason that he's compensated more, then that won't be a violation either, except this is something that we would probably argue about in court. Next is a system that measures quality or quantity of production. For instance, if the male worker is paid more on the basis of his commission because he sells more, then that is not a violation either. Finally, there are regional differences in compensation. This would include differences in compensation based on location. For instance, if you worked in a city, it might be more expensive to live there, and the compensation would have to account for that versus a worker who works in a rural area. So if the difference in compensation is based on regional differences, then that is not a violation either. Okay, so what do you get if you win a claim of unequal pay? An employee who wins their claim of unequal pay gets 4 types of damages. First, actual damages. Second, statutory damages. Third, interest. And fourth, attorney's fees. So let's go over each of those. The actual damages is the actual difference in pay. So if the male worker was making $10,000 more a year than the female worker could collect those $10,000, and it will go back 4 years in Washington state. So if this pay disparity existed for the past 4 years, that would be $40,000, $10,000 each year for 4 years. Next, statutory damages. Statutory damages here are the same as actual damages. In other words, if you succeed on your claim of unequal pay, you get double damages. So that $40,000 that we just determined for the actual damages in our hypothetical claim would become $80,000 because of statutory damages. Next is interest owed. And under Washington's Equal Pay Act, victims can collect 1% interest a month on the total amount. And finally, we have attorney's fees. The violator has to pay the victim the fees that their attorney accrued while prosecuting the claim. These fees can be thousands of dollars. So now, if you total all those damages up, you'll see that this is coming to a lot of money. And that's good because it dissuades employers from furthering that unequal pay gap between men and women. And that's what we want. Okay, so now you know how equal pay laws work. If an employer pays a woman less than a similarly employed male worker, the employer is then in violation of the law. And the worker who is paid less can collect the difference in pay times 2, plus interest, plus the attorney's fees. If you like this video, make sure to hit that thumbs up. It helps other workers find my videos. And the more we hold employers accountable for their wrongdoing, the more we protect other workers. And if you think you were discriminated against at work or paid unequally on the basis of your gender, feel free to contact my firm for a free consultation. The link to my website is in the description below. Okay, that's all for me this week. See you next time.